This is the Unit 5 Geometry Practice Test answer key. Number 1, find the scale factor and the missing side length. The first thing that I'm going to do is find the scale factor. When we take the scale factor, we're taking the new divided by the old. So that's 1.2 divided by 2.4. When we do that, we get 0.5, so that is our scale factor. This problem is obviously not drawn to scale because our smaller box has larger numbers than our larger box. To find x, we're going to take 6.8 times that 0.5, and that gives us 3.25 equaling x. So our missing side length here is 3.25 inches. Again, you need the scale factor and you need to solve for x. Any questions about number 1? Okay. Moving along to number 2. What is the difference between scale and scale factor? Scale relates the relationship between two similar figures and uses different units. Scale factor tells the relationship between two similar figures and has the same units. We had talked in class about how the scale would be something like a legend on a map that relates 1 inch on the map to 15 miles or something along those lines, where the scale factor says that object A is half the size of object B. Are there any questions about number 2? You could, but on your test, number 2 is multiple choice. So, yes, that is a good way to remember, but you have to remember which is which. Okay. Number 3 says to construct and label a triangle with angles of 90 degrees, 45 degrees, and 45 degrees. So, when we are doing this, we're going to use a rough sketch. So something needs to look roughly like this. This is my 90-degree angle. We know that it's 90 degrees because it has the right angle symbol present. Then we label this as 45 degrees and 45 degrees. Questions about number 3? Number 4. Tell if a rectangle can be created with the following side lengths and explain your answer. The triangle inequality theorem says that the sum of the lengths of the two smaller legs must be greater than the length of the third side. So that was to say that 4.7 inches plus 5.2 inches must be greater than 12.3 inches. 4.7 plus 5.2 is 9.9, which is not greater than 12.3. So no, a triangle cannot be created. And because we showed the math here, that explains our answer. Questions? All right. Yes. It can also be equal to. But the number of instances where it is equal to are very, very slim. I did not put in or equal to as on your test. It's not going to be or equal to. We, excuse me, state test would also not use or equal to, because that would not show that you know which value had to be greater. Because if they're both or equal to, then that's kind of like taking the cheap way out. We want to make sure that you know which one has to be greater. All right. Number 5, Jane owns a kite shop. A customer wants a unique kite that is a quadrilateral with one set of parallel sides and no right angles. Sketch the kite and name the shape as precisely as possible. Okay, so if I'm looking for a quadrilateral, that means I need something with 4 sides. It has one set of parallel sides and no right angles. Well, to me, that would look something like that. Does yours have to look exactly like mine? No. Should yours be a trapezoid like mine? Yes. Okay. So make sure that you have a trapezoid. Make sure that you called it a trapezoid. But that's what we need. Okay. The other thing to make sure that you do, make sure that you do not have any right angles present. Questions about number 5? Okay. Number 6. Excuse me. Jane's sketch has the side lengths below. The final kite needs to have a base length of 19.4 inches. What is the scale factor and the other side lengths? So I'm going to go ahead and draw a larger version of my trapezoid. Is it to scale? Is my drawing to scale? No, but that's okay. So we know that this has to be 19.4. To find the scale factor, we take 19.4 divided by 9.7, and that's 2. All right. So then we're going to take 5.1, multiply 5.1 times 2. That gives us 10.2. And 4.6 times 2, which is 9.2. And these are all in inches. 5.1 times 2 is 10.2. So we take each of these values, multiply it by 2, and that will give us our final answer. Yep.
Where'd you get the 2?
Because that's my scale factor. We took the new divided by the old. Questions about, any other questions about number 6? Number 7. David's cell phone died, and he had to use a map to get to St. Louis. That is such a tragedy. The map says that he needs to stay on I-20 for 3 inches. The legend has 1/2 inch equaling 54 miles. How long does David stay on I-20? So, we need to go from 1/2 inch to 3 inches. 3 inches is equal to 6 1/2 inch sections, correct? Okay? So, we're going to multiply 6 times 54 miles because each 1/2 inch section is 54 miles. That is 324 miles. Okay, so we look at the number of sections needed, multiply it by the number of miles that's represented from each section, and that will give us our total number of miles. Questions about number 7? Besides, how did David let his phone die?
Wait, so the answer is 324 miles?
Yes. The answer is 324 miles.
So what's all the extras at the bottom?
That tells us where we got each number from.
Okay. Did you just take 3 2?
What?
Like, how did you get?
How did I get the 6? Because 3 inches is made up of 6 1/2 inch sections. A half times 6 equals 3, right? So that tells us how many 1/2 inch sections that we needed. Because it tells us how far a 1/2 inch section is on the map. Okay? Other questions about number 7? Okay, moving on to number 8. Number 8 says, Diane missed school yesterday and you're trying to help her catch up. Which statements are true? A unique triangle has side lengths and angle measures given. That would be true. But we're going to come back to that. B, more than one triangle can be created when only side lengths or angle measures are given. Guys, that's not true. If your side lengths are given, you can only create one specific triangle. Because there's only one way that those 3 legs are going to fit. C, no triangle can be created if the angles don't equal 180 degrees. That's true. Or if the sum of the 2 short sides are less than the length of the long side. That part's not true. So that means C is out. Even though the first part of C is true, the second part is not, which means that the only correct answer is A. Make sure that you read the entirety of each part. Okay, so a unique triangle, that means that you can only create one specific triangle. If I give you side lengths and angle measures, there's only one triangle that can be created. You can't change the size of it. You can't adjust any of the legs to make the angles different. You can only create one. There's only one way for that to happen. Okay? That's what unique triangle means. Other questions about number 8? Number 9 says to draw a vertical cross section in the middle of the prism below and tell what the shape of the cross section will be. So to draw that, I'm going to draw something that looks like a box there. And the shape of the cross section will be a rectangle. Because we're not given any dimensions, while this looks like a square, can we confirm that it is in fact a square? No, so what's the safer option? A rectangle. Is a square a specific type of rectangle? Yes. Why do you think?
Because 6.8 times 0.5 is 3.4, not 3.25.
Hold on, I might have made a calculation now. Hold on. It is 3.4. I'm sorry. Correction.
Yeah, I got it right.
Correction, and this is why I tell you guys to do math in pencil. X is actually equal to 3.4. I had a miscommunication between my calculator and my hand. The correct answer in number 1 should be 3.4, not 3.25. I do apologize for that mistake. Thank you for watching this way through the video to make sure that you corrected it.
That's cool. Couldn't you just do like 3 or 2.4 over 6.8 times 1.2 over x?
Yeah. There's more than one way that you can do number 1.
Can I use that way for everything? Like for all of them?
You can't find scale factor that way, but you can find the missing side lengths that way, yes. Does that make sense?
And the scale factor, I just have to do the numerator.
Yeah, yeah. There is a question about having multiple ways to solve number 1. Since we had gone back to it, yes, there are multiple different ways. When we were in Unit 2 working with ratios and proportions, we used proportions to solve for missing side lengths. You can still do that, absolutely. However, using that method will not find the scale factor. So you can use either way to solve these problems. Any other questions before we look at the back? Okay, let's look at the back. Number 10 says to draw a horizontal cross section in the pyramid below and tell what the shape of the cross section will be. Well, when I draw that cross section, this is what we did with the Play-Doh and the string, yes. So I drew in my cross section and it will create a rectangle.
So all you did was probably cut it off. You just can't really cut it off.
Yeah.
So wouldn't it be whatever the base is? Like if you're doing it horizontally,
Yes.
is what
If you have a horizontal cross section, the cross section will be the shape of your base.
I know, but that is isn't the shape of the base a trapezoid? Because it goes like across and then the two.
Here? No, because so the part in green is the base.
Wait.
The part outlined in green is the base. So the base is a rectangle.
So we really just look at that basically.
That's one way to do it, yes.
That looks like a square. Yeah.
But remember,
A
a square
square is a fancy rectangle.
is a fancy rectangle, and unless we are given dimensions or told that it is a square, we are going to call the cross section a rectangle.
So if we put something that is a rectangle that is a complete square, we'll still get it right?
If you are given dimensions that if you are given dimensions or some way that says that all 4 side lengths are congruent, you need to tell me square, not rectangle. If you're not given those, call it a rectangle. Okay? All right. 11 to 15 are matching. So, number 11, a kite. Actually, for these, we're going to go backwards. We're going to look at the description and then see which word fits. Part A says a quadrilateral with opposite sides parallel and congruent and opposite angles congruent. That says parallelogram. Because it says only that the opposite sides are parallel and congruent. It doesn't say all sides are congruent, just opposite sides. So A goes with parallelogram.
I thought all sides of a parallelogram were parallel.
All sides can't be parallel, or that would be 4 straight lines. No. If you had 4 parallel lines, 4 parallel lines would look like this. That's not a shape. That's 4 lines.
Like that. Like this is
Opposite sides parallel is true. Okay? And that's what a parallel, that's what it says.
I thought you said one side of parallel.
Okay? B, a quadrilateral with opposite sides parallel and congruent with 4 right angles. Okay? So opposite sides are parallel and congruent, and it has 4 right angles. The only shape here that has 4 right angles is the rectangle. So that would say that 15 is B. C, a quadrilateral with opposite sides and angles congruent. Opposite sides and opposite angles, that would be the kite, which is C. It doesn't say anything about parallel, and kites don't have any parts parallel. D, a quadrilateral with one set of parallel sides. The other sides may or may not be congruent. That is a trapezoid. D. E, a quadrilateral with opposite sides parallel and congruent. Opposite angles are congruent. E. All right. That is the conclusion of the Unit 5 practice test.